This is Philip Singleton, just doing the comm check.
We can hear you. Thank you. Very good. At the final report of the Joint Study Committee on Airports, Infrastructure and Improvements. And I believe, you know, we're lacking one on having a quorum. We're just looking, Chairman Ginn, are you on yet? Not yet. It's not on yet. We'll just go ahead and start. And then we're just lacking one. And thank you, those who are on. For getting out on this beautiful New Year's Eve day. It's raining. It's terrible for me coming in from Cherokee and Cobb County. You know, thank you, Larry and Bob, for being here in person, flying up this morning. But we appreciate it. You know, the purpose of was to bring attention and look at solutions of what I've just become to learn is an economic power in our communities, and that's our airports. You know, for me personally, you know, I've learned a lot. I think my knowledge was pretty shallow in the beginning, just what I had seen, what I've been involved in locally, and thanks to you, the associations, and all the different folks who've been in contact with me, you know, I've learned a lot. You know, I think getting Chairman Ginn and I invited to the association meeting that y'all had was very good for me, because not only talk to airport managers, but all the different people who are involved in the business of airports was very, very helpful. And I looked at it, I enjoyed it a lot. You know, we looked at problems, and I think that's the purpose of a study committee, is to be effective, to look at, you know, and I think underfunding came to the point, and the need to create a better and consistent funding stream for this very valuable economic asset we have throughout the state. You know, writing notes this morning, I was thinking about it. You know, when the last meeting we had in Jackson County, you know, we heard from North Carolina, where we really needed to work as a team and support the vibrant airports that we have in our state. And I think that was very important. You know, I want to talk about Ben Line. Now, Ben, right here, you can see him on it. We couldn't have done this without him, could we, gentlemen? You know, this was a Senate, you know, starts in the Senate, and so that they're responsible for it. So poor Ben got this laid in his lap. You know, Tyler Harper was the initial writer of the legislation to bring us all together. But, you know, but that's the easy part, folks. And then some fine person like Ben, and on my side, Abby Day, just get to do the work. And I'll tell you, in the last week, if you've watched your email and things that went across, Ben has just done a wonderful job, and we really appreciate his leadership. Getting there, Ben, we couldn't do it without you. We thank you very much.
Appreciate you saying that, Chairman.
We just, you know, so in just a second, do y'all have anybody else have a comment? Because then we're going to turn it over to Ben, who's going to go over the recommendations. One thing on the recommendations, you know, ask me, do we have to do 10 or could we do all of them? We certainly can do all of them. We'll notice on the recommendations, we deleted the jet fuel issue because it has passed the House and sitting in the Senate right now awaiting their action. So there's no reason for that to be in there. So let's, anybody else have a comment that's online? Just wave, push a button, whatever. If not, I'm going to turn it over to Ben, and he's going to go over the recommendations, and then we'll have discussion on them. Then we'll make a motion to pass them, and if we want to, and move on. You 7?
I am 7.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, these recommendations are going to be the same that I emailed out this morning. I've made some adjustments to the language, taking in under advisement the comments of the committee and trying to reconcile a lot of really good ideas into one thing of language, but obviously we could talk about tweaking that if it's the will of the committee. You'll also see in what I emailed this morning, there's parenthetical numbers. That is just a for your benefit of knowing how much support there was on the initial polling. As you can see, for the majority of the ones that are included, there's a pretty good parity among the support so far. But I just want to go through the 14 items as I've listed now. The first recommendation is to raise the total annual funding for airport infrastructure and improvements to levels comparable to neighboring states like Florida and North Carolina. The second recommendation is to allow funding, state funding to be continuous and adjusted with consumer price index considerations or as a percentage of total state revenue. The third is to expand projects eligible for state funding to include revenue producing projects, land acquisition, hangar development, and obstruction mitigation. The fourth is revise funding formula to increase the amount of the state contributes for airport infrastructure and safety projects, provided there's an overall increase in aviation grant appropriations. And that last clause, that was the benefit of a lot of input from the members. And I really do appreciate it. I think that made that a lot stronger. The next is to allow an airport's revenue generating projects to be eligible for state funding. The next is allow funding to carry over annually to allow for larger projects with appropriate restrictions on length of time and the amount that can be carried over. The next is consider appropriating funds from the CARES Act and other recent federal funding towards airport infrastructure. The next is consider a loan program with stipulations for building hangars. The next is streamline the process for approving projects and allow for greater local discretion. The next is consider a constitutional amendment allowing the state to take on general obligation debt in order to make grants or loans to local governments for airport infrastructure. The next is consider workforce development for aviation careers. The next is conduct further studies on commercial air carrier and air cargo investment opportunities. And finally, encourage collaboration between local airports, local elected officials, and GDOT to find T-SPLOST projects to support Georgia airports.
Thank you, Ben. Do I see anybody waving their hands or have a comment?
I can offer a comment.
Okay, your number. Wait a minute, Bob. We need to punch you in. Okay.
Yeah, this is Robert Burr. These recommendations, based on the comments received by the committee, I think have been finessed even better. So Georgia Airport Association really supports all of them, and including the additional change of language. So I think they did an excellent job. One caution on the item number on the CARES Act number 7. There's a lot of restrictions to that. Some of them are as far as allocation of that money. So how much that could be implemented is questionable, but leaving it in there it doesn't hurt at all.
And if I could comment on that,
Yeah.
I appreciate that statement. As you can see, that item is the one that had the lowest support among the people who sent in their views on the committee for exactly the reasons that you just demonstrated, that it may, that funding may not be available. And anyway, but so that goes to the will of committee if that needs to be included in the final report.
Thank you, Ben. Larry, would you like to say anything? I want to call on Tyler Harper in just a moment for him to make some comments.
I'm fine with
Oh.
that.
Go ahead. You're fine. Okay. Chairman Harper. Okay. Down on Commissioner McMurray, go ahead.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to speak in front of Chairman Harper. Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to reaffirm the conversation around number 7 as it relates to CARES Act, federal CARES Act or CSRA or any of the federal dollars have strict limitations on how they can be used, and federal cannot be used to match other federal if that was somebody's intent. So based on your prior conversation, I'd recommend number 7 not be included as a recommendation to the extent all the aviation eligible federal dollars that were made available to Georgia, we are deploying those to the airports, although it's not much. So those are being utilized. And I think since this report and this work of the commission is forward leaning, those things are happened in the past and have restrictions that really don't help us moving forward. So my recommendation would just to be strike number 7 and pare your list down a little bit. Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, we haven't made a motion yet. Yeah, we haven't made a motion yet.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very much, Russell. Hello, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, there we go.
I'm getting technology in South Beach, Florida. So I'm checking out airports in sunny state of Florida. Hope y'all
great.
are doing well.
With us.
I'm gonna put myself back on mute, but I'll listen during the meeting mostly and depend on my great chairman over there to take care of things. But thanks for your comments, Russell.
Well, thank you, Chairman Ginn. It's been a pleasure working with you on this, and we're just glad to keep this moving along. Is it sunny down there in South Florida?
It's a beautiful day. Got a few scantily clad bikinis running around, so I'm focused on a lot of different things here.
Okay, well, we're glad you're on thinking about airports right now. Hang on just a second.
You know, mostly it's guys in bikinis.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, good.
That's what worries me about South Beach.
I have a comment from Mr. Larry right here.
Yeah, just thank you. Just looking at the team, discussed that a little bit earlier, but so that is something that is towards communities or counties that or regions that have a T-Splosh, and that can help them. And I think it's good that we utilize T-Splosh for the airports when we can, but as a state program here, like our community, our county, our region, we don't have T-Splosh. So we couldn't take advantage of that until or unless we finally get something passed.
Yeah, I think it's just encouraging for people to work on that. And to, when T-Splosh locally are divided up or planned, that airport authorities need to be at the table asking.
Right.
And be a part of a T-Splosh when it goes in or when it's voted on by a local community.
As long as it didn't, to me, affect number 1, like
Oh, no.
some
No.
came out of number 1 because we had number 13.
Yeah, I think I think in 13 there's got to be a match, and some counties just don't get match money from the general fund,
Right,
and this is their ability to get it,
right.
or to go create a bond, bond payments, whatever it might
Yeah.
be.
I understand. Thank you.
Good deal. So what we'll do,
I have
I'm
a
going to ask.
comment.
Yes, please. Who is that?
Mr. Chairman, it's Philip Singleton. Sorry, I don't know if you can see my hand raised or not.
You do now, Philip. I see a nice yellow hand up there.
Thanks. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate all the work done on this. And unfortunately, I've been flying the last 4 days, so I hadn't had a chance to put some of my thoughts in writing, but I appreciate all the work the staff's done. My only concern is kind of what you're just talking about, that both the CARES Act and the T-Splosh options, it would be my recommendation to not include them in the final recommendations. And a lot of my concern is not just around the fact that, some localities don't have T-Splosh as an option, but T-Splosh is inherently not a permanent option. It's locally renewable. I think most of them are on a 5-year renewing cycle, but as we know, they normally get renewed. But I would just caution us to do recommendations on something that is not sustainable long-term, like state funding could be.
Certainly, I understand that. I guess that mine was that I think the association can do the work if we do remove 13 to encourage, their local boards to be involved when there is T-Splosh coming up in communities to be at the table to possibly get a portion of that.
Yes, sir. And I certainly don't disagree with the sentiment. That's not the point I was making. So I hope that's clear. I don't disagree with the sentiment that they should be involved in that process and early on, especially those airport authorities early on getting in the front end of their projects on the docket for those monies. my point is just as far as the state recommendation, if we could focus more on, long-term budgetary issues like, number one, number two, I think those would be more beneficial.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have their hand up? Ma'am? No one else has their hand up? Okay, so how it's work, you'll be glad to accept a motion. Siri thinks I'm talking to it right now. To accept them, and then what we'll do, we'll then amend the report that Ben's created. And so I'd be appreciative if someone to make a motion.
Chairman Jaspers, this is Greg Teague. I'd make a motion that we approve the report as written with the removal of the CARES Act, number 7 out of the recommendations.
Okay. I need a second.
Chairman, this is Ken Warnick. I'll second that motion.
Well, thank you. So, and the discussion is we're moving number 7 from that. And I know Philip Singleton recommended removing 13. Any further discussion on removing it be the last one on your sheet? Keep it or leave it? Any thoughts? I know you had, Larry. So you're 9. Wait a minute, you're 9 or 10. Okay, sorry, thank you.
If we leave it on there, maybe some other legislators see it and they think, well, why don't we just solve it with that? Because they don't maybe have a whole grasp of the understanding of the needs of the airport, how much they can do or not. That might be confusing to them to say that T-Splash should solve these issues.
So you're saying
I'm
to
saying to strike it.
to strike it. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. So let's do number 7. All in favor of removing number 7 would be an aye or a hand up button or whatever. Is there, I guess, is there any opposition to removing number 7? Hear none. So that one's removed. Okay, look at number 13. That's the last one on page 16. Any opposition to removing number 13? Yeah, so I would assume everyone else is in the affirmative. So we'll move 7 and 13.
Mr. Chairman, I would offer to amend my motion to remove item number 13 as well.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Keeping us straight. So we got a motion to accept them and removing number 7 and number 13 as written by Ben. I also want to put in here, committee, I want to give Ben, as he does a final draft of this, if there's any corrections, Ben, that you might need to make, spelling, all that kind of stuff, as y'all look through it, that we give Ben the authority to do that. And with that motion and a second, let's go ahead and vote and we'll move on it. All those in favor will be an aye or a wave.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion recommendations carry as written by Ben. We thank you, Ben, very much.
I appreciate the committee for all the work and this and helping, get what I think is a really good product done today. So thank you all.
Yeah, and yay, but go Ben. We appreciate you. I tell you, it's a lot. I just want to just throw out something. We were talking in the hallway, and then I'll be turn it open. Anyone else has a comment also. What's next? And I think as we were talking, there's a lot here in these 11 items. And I think, the association, looking at what North Carolina says, is to creating a team so that you guys create a unified voice in what the governor hears, what Senator Ginn and I hear, and the appropriators like Chairman Perkle, who's the appropriations chairman in the House for Transportation, that they hear the same thing, and that they, in a cohesiveness, because you've got to message, because you've got to create new dollars to, especially to get, number 1 done. And I know you'll have lots of people who want to help you do that, and because it will make an effect as it has in these other states. But I think you've got to either step back, reform so that these messages are clear. And I think you're getting there for sure, but because this is new money will have to be created in next year's budget, not this one we're working on next week, but the one afterward. Because, as I was telling them out in the hallway, the governor's going to give us his spending plan in a week or so. And to get money at that point, you got to take it from someone else. And that's a tough thing to do. And, but this is a great plan. And I appreciate Tyler Harper, Senator Harper, for really putting this discussion on the table and making sure that we all talk about it. And I look forward to working with you personally myself in the future on it. But I'll be glad to turn it over to anyone else who'd like to make a comment.
Just would like to make a comment if I could right now.
Yes, sir.
So I think you're right, and I apologize. I'm sorry I had to catch in the board meeting, but for the last meeting, and that was when North Carolina did present.
Yeah.
And as you stated, I understand that they said, so now here comes the hard work. And so this is when you need a team to and some horses to get this done. And we appreciate you and just again to take this to the legislature and be those horses, but also needing a team around it, working and outside of that with their own legislators and so forth, but also with the governor's office and wherever it is we need to be. So just wondering if a task force, from this committee or additional people that aren't even a part of this committee is an appropriate thing to put together to help push what is going to be the hardest part of this whole process, and that is finding the funds. And if anybody is willing to do that, or what are your thoughts or Frank's thoughts in terms of something like that happening? We don't want to get in your way, but we want to be an asset to you.
Sure.
However we can.
Chairman Gann, are you with us? Would you like to comment on that? Uh-oh, doesn't sound like it.
Hey, Rick, this is Tyler.
Hey, Tyler, good.
I'll
Thank you.
comment.
Good.
Hey, I think that one of the most significant ways
I'm here, Rick.
I think you can help us in this would be
You pay for this, whatever. Let me, I gotta participate in this one.
I think would be to share the information with your airports around the state and use the association to do that. And through that, hey, Frank, I think you're off mute, by the way.
Yeah.
There we go. And I think through that, utilize your local airports to make sure they're reaching out to their senator and their representatives in their area, because I think that number one, that goes a long way. That personal relationship from legislator to community goes a significantly long way. And I think you can utilize this report. And I just want to tell Rick and Frank, thank you and the entire team and the committee. I think we've put together a good report. Ben, thank you for your work on this. But I think if we can utilize this report as a way to get this information to Rick and Frank and I and Sonia and the others that are on the committee, all of our colleagues, and Philip Singleton, all of our colleagues. I think the number one way you can help us is to ensure that the airports around the state are reaching out to their elected officials and letting them know how important these issues are, because I think a lot of times what happens is those our airport boards or authorities or whatever there may be throughout the community, they're I don't think in some cases they can be quite as vocal as the county commission when it comes to wanting a road, if that makes sense. So I think it's important for them to build that relationship and gives and then it gives that personal touch to the elected officials that we serve with, and shows the need in a better aspect. And it's a lot easier, I think, in some cases, to convince our colleagues to support something when they see it directly impacting their community. So I think that's one way that you can definitely help us, is helping us talk to your colleagues around the state and get them to reach out to their local members of the General Assembly. I think that will go a long way in helping us finding ways to get these solutions across the finish line. So that would be my suggestion.
Do we need to have conversations with, like, the governor's office, since that's the office that, presents a budget? Delta, since we took the tax off the table, I think they would be, wanting to help us, and they have a lot of pull and influence. Any other, places that we need to go visit besides talking to our legislators, which I think we all need to do. Need to bring them up to speed and put them on par with what we're trying to do and why. But maybe there's some horses in the background that we need to look at.
I'll just speak, then we'll turn it over to Chairman Ginn, but I just think those are the two key ones. And I think, add to what Tyler said, I think you need to show, I think what I got out of this is we showed and we saw what improvements to a local airport can do to economic development in their community. I mean, that's the most powerful thing to me. I mean, as a rural legislator, seeing that with a little improvement, what it can mean economic development wise.
Right.
So I think bringing economic development folks into to help tell that story and is a good one. Chairman Ginn?
Yes, sir, Chairman Jasper. And don't know if you got a lot of background noise or not, but for me, I want to thank all the committee members. I want to thank Chairman Jaspers and our commissioners with DOT and especially our folks that work in the multimodal side with DOT. But I really think that this gives us a direction and a focus on what we want to do to improve our airports across the state, how vital they are to the economic development of the state. And, it's like somebody said when we started this, okay, it's not just the 800-pound gorilla of Hartsfield in the room, but when we start looking at how they all interact with each other, they all play a critical role to developing the whole state of Georgia and moving people where they want to go. So, as well as, I sometimes, and I learned a lot more about when I visited at Hartsfield, how much freight we move through some of our airports. But I appreciate everybody working on the report. I'm looking to see how Ben finalizes it today, and I don't think that this will fall on deaf ears. I think the governor has always been working to improve our state and improve what's going on, and it gives us a focus on where we need to move. So thank you very much for allowing me to participate. Even though I am in South Beach, I can tell you that my focus is always on transportation. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day, and really a happy new year, because we look for great things to happen in 2022.
Well, I hope you do a really good job cheering for the Dogs tomorrow night, Chairman Ginn.
Don't you worry, we'll come home with a victory here, and we get to go see our folks in Indiana, and hopefully it's Alabama, and maybe we can get past their number. They're like a curse.
Hey, well, it's been a pleasure of mine to work with you, Chairman Ginn. You know that.
Thank you, Chairman Jasper, and always great to work with you. Thank y'all very much.
How about any other members? Wave a hand. Seeing none, I don't believe I see anybody waving a hand. Ma'am, we don't? Nope, none. Well, with that, we'll conclude our meeting and adjourn it. And I appreciate everyone's participation and taking time on this busy, rainy morning up here in Atlanta. But thank you very much. We adjourn.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.